Is that it? Is it on? Is it on? Said it's on. Oh no, that was before. Is it on? Okay. I think I'm on to something. Said it's on. Can you guys hear me now? Oh, I got a lot of thumbs up. What the fuck? Okay. I think I'm on to something. Said it's on. Can you guys hear?
Okay. It's on.
Okay. Guys, you know what we're going to have to do? I got my good buddy here. So I'm going to run a little longer tonight. I want you guys to have the treat of being with my pal, Big Johnny Pizzi. And I got a question for Johnny Pizzi. First of all, I want to say something. This man is the most prepared person I've ever worked with, okay, and been friends with. He writes down his notes before every show. He wanted to play piano. He plays piano. He wanted to be a magician. he'll blow your friggin' mind, except for math jokes. I don't like math jokes. It gives me a headache. But he is phenomenal. And I know he has one story that he's going to tell you about that guy from the Patriots with the
Bill Belichick.
Tell him that story. Will you? You're going to love this story.
So I've been doing magic for about 30 something years. When my kids were young, I used to say, how am I going to entertain at their parties? And I always liked magic as we all did when we were kids. So I went to the joke shop. I bought a bunch of magic tricks and I did them for the kids and got hooked. And I belong to the International Brotherhood of Magicians, the Society of American Magicians. And I go to magic conventions. I used to go to 3 a year all over the country. Now I just go to the big one in Las Vegas. So anyway, so here and there, when I do comedy shows, I sometimes do magic. When I'm doing the comedy scene, I stick to comedy unless somebody says, hey, would you do me a favor and do something magical? So, because I know 85% of comics don't like magic. So I don't want to throw it in anybody's face. So anyway, but Lenny Clark one day gets a call from his buddy, Bill Belichick. And Bill wanted an entertainer, but he didn't want a comedian because he would have asked Lenny because all his relatives were coming in from all over the country. And he said, how about a magician? So Lenny goes, I got just a guy for you. So Lenny calls me and goes, Bill's going to call you up in 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
So you got to be, so all of a sudden the phone rings, it's a 508 number. And I go, oh, this got to be him. And you got to act really cool, you know? Hey, how you doing, Bill? Nice. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Bill Belichick. Yeah. So he said to me, I'm looking for someone to entertain at my son's party. And so Lenny recommended you. I said, I'd love to do it for you, Bill, be on it. And he says to me, so what do you want? What do you want to do? I said, I want 4 tickets. I want to sit in your seats and I want to see you after the game. He goes, done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
he's not shy.
Right. So I take my son, John Michael, with me because he's the biggest football fan. I mean, he loves. So we hop on the plane. We go to Nantucket. A car picks us up at the airport, takes us to the swanky French restaurant in Nantucket. And I get in, I walk in, I have my briefcase with me, and I said, Belichick party upstairs. So I go upstairs, and there's Bill sitting at the head of the table, with a long table, 30 guys. And I knew I had to do something really good because I got 30 guys there. And if it's not a good trick, the trick sucks, they're going to be like, next.
And he's going to call Lenny and read him the right.
So I go like this. I go, Bill, come with me. So we get out to the other end of the table. Where's his son, Steven, who's getting married. It was his bachelor party. And I did this trick. It's called Anniversary Waltz by Doc Eason. It's a phenomenal trick. I have them both sign it, pick a card. They both sign the card. I lose them in the deck. And it ends up, at the end, I take the 2 cards and I hold their hands and the cards. And I said, there's nothing greater than the love between a father and their son. And when the card comes out, it's 1 card with their signature on each side.
Wow.
And Bill said, can I swear?
Yeah.
He goes, how the fuck did you do that? So it was unbelievable, right? He could. So now I got 30 guys over my shoulder. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm doing card tricks for all of them. They're loving it. And then Bill says, hey, would you get downstairs and do that for the wives and the girlfriends? I said, of course. So I get downstairs and I do that same stuff for the wives and the girlfriends. They loved it. And then he says, come on, you want to eat? I go, no, I'm good. He goes, I will get out to my house. He only owns 5 houses on Nantucket, yeah. And so we walked. It was only a short walk down to his house. Now he lives right next door to his ex-wife. That's a pretty good thing, right?
That's a good hell of a deal.
So we get to. So as we're walking, he goes, "Give me a briefcase. Let me carry it." I go, "No, Bill." He goes, "Give me a." And he's carrying my briefcase, and my son videotapes him a little bit, and he's going, "I can't believe Bill Belichick is carrying your briefcase." Then he stops in the middle of the street, takes out a wad of money, a little bull clip holder. He goes, "Here, take this." I go, "Bill, I don't want any money. I want the tickets. You give me you got the tickets. Take the money." I go, "I don't want. Take them." He's like, "Take the money." I got the money. I just throw it in my bag. We go to his house because I'm now going to do a stage show.
Yeah.
You know, thank God I can do close up
Yeah.
and I could do stage, right? So he went back to the restaurant, and I'm there with about 30 or 40 of his relatives from all over the country. And I'm entertaining them before everything, you know, going around entertaining all them. And then about 5 buses pull up, about 8:30, and everybody gets out, all the people. And now there's about 120 people in his yard. There's a bar set up, beautiful stage. And I did a stage show for him, which I did some special things for him and he loved. He hugged me more, Don.
Yeah.
And that 3 hours I was with him than I'd been in all the years of marriage.
Really?
Oh my God. Hugging me, telling me how great I'm like Bill Belichick, you know? And it was just such a memorable night that I could see him. And let me tell you something, for all you people out there in television land or YouTube land, you know, everybody gets to see Bill in his press conference or in his interviews. Yeah, hi, good game. We played hard. They played well. Now it's on to Baltimore, whatever. And he's got that stoic look in his face. You know what I mean? When you see him off the grid,
nothing like that.
Yeah. You know, he's having a drink. He's laughing. You tell him a joke, he'll tell you a dirtier joke. Believe me, people, he's the nicest guy you ever want to associate with. And you know what's so nice, Don? I still text him regularly, and he always gets back to me. One time he didn't get back to me for 2 weeks. He apologized for not getting back to me right away. I mean, he is one super, super guy. And I hope he never leaves the Patriots. And all you naysayers out there that, oh, we need a new guy. No, the man is a genius.
Great story, Johnny. Peter Martino, one of my favorites. Brian Cuss. Hey, guys, what's up? All the way from the United Kingdom, right?
Hey,
now.
Brian, how you doing? I love England. I'm going back again. I've already been there once. Went to London and Liverpool because I'm a Beatle fan.
That's another story. He's going to tell you in a minute. Did you ever meet Max the Magician with no fingers? He used to bartend in the North End of Boston in the 70s.
No, you know something? I never did. I've never heard of him. Imagine.
He gave him the finger. No.
I was at about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Well, it was kind of in the summertime. Went to the North End. There was a cigar bar. You ever been to the cigar bar there?
I have.
Never been. Went downstairs and was sitting there, and it was like a speakeasy place. You know,
I walked out with emphysema.
I know, right?
Wow.
Well, they got the fans sucking all the stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, I started to do magic at my table for everybody. Next thing I know, the people, everybody that works there, they're all over my shoulder. And they're like, those are the most incredible tricks I've ever done. You know, thank God, you know, all those going to conventions, studying magic, watching magic, practicing magic. It's really come in handy. And let me tell you, you know, sometimes one trick may take 3 months to perfect.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do it. And you know what? And you know, it's funny when I'm practicing something and that I want to get out there.
And you are a perfectionist.
I try. Well, I try to be as much as I can. I carry it on me in my everyday life. And I could be driving my car and I'm doing moves, just practicing. I'm staring with my, with my knees at red. I stop at red lights. I'm doing coin tricks. And it's just how I practice. And I do it over and over and over again. And then finally, I try to start testing it out on my friends. Donny T.
And I hate math.
And he doesn't.
But I tell him honest.
Yeah. And so, anyways, and but it just, it gives me another tool in my tool belt.
Exactly.
The gorilla, is that the gorilla?
The gorilla room.
Well, I never heard of the gorilla room.
No, I have. I'm one of the gorilla eights.
Really?
I'm a gorilla right, I guess. I'm not on there that often, but Brian's on there, Stallion's on there. Martino, I don't see you on there, but okay, here's another thing, guys. Okay. I was going to ask, I had 1,000 questions, but now Johnny is from East Boston, the mob capital of Massachusetts. My way, them and Revere and East Boston, they're like brothers. Well, I asked Johnny, I say, Johnny, you're in that kind of neighborhood. with the hang around kind of guys. What the hell ever made you go into comedy? I know. Did you try to get away from things with comedy?
Well, we'll put it this way. I lived in Jeffrey's Point, and there were wise guys in the neighborhood, obviously.
Yeah.
There was something. I'll be honest, probably insecure as a kid, tough childhood, I had two parents, wonderful people, but they were the type of people that should never have gotten married. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It was only my father's fourth marriage, or fifth. It could have been his fifth. I don't know, But and so it was a tough situation. So I was, I think, an insecure kid. I was and I was tiny. People don't even. I was talking to Matt Mishi, and because he made a comment about he's being short. He's 5'5".
Yeah.
I said, Matt, I was the smallest kid in high school. I was less than 2 pounds when I was born.
Really?
I was in an incubator for 2 months. My mother's father died. I was born 2 weeks after he died. I think it was probably the stress maybe caused my mother to go early. And I was so I was always tiny, first row, first seat. And the good thing is this. So about being picked on. Normally it's the small, but that's where funny come in.
Yeah.
And my childhood idol was Jerry Lewis. And I could do a phenomenal Jerry. Hello. I did it. Dean. But anyway, so I did a great Jerry Lewis, and it got me out of fights. It got me, popular in school and stuff like that. I was a good athlete, but I was small. I was tiny. And my father used to always tell, my mother was 5'8". That's tall for him.
Nothing small about your kids.
No, well, they were small, but my two boys, very small when they were younger, great athletes. I was a very good athlete myself, not super, super fantastic, but, I could throw a football 50 yards to a tire. I mean, I was accurate. I could field. I wasn't a power hitter, but I was an average hitter. I could bat 350 in softball, 400. Because I was a singles hitter. I used to place the ball.
That's me too.
But I didn't have power because I was small and I was thin. Of course, they called you skinny. But see, now it's bullying. But when we were kids, right? If somebody was heavy, fatso, we survived.
Yeah.
We survived. But now it's bullying. You know what I mean? And it's a different world out there, But so being funny helped me.
Donny is amazing. How are you an actor, but most of your friends are comedians? You ever act, Johnny? He acts every time he goes on stage. A lot of comedians, okay? And I actually I got this quick story to tell. He got pissed at me, but I was deserving of it. He said, Donny, now he had a club that he used to, what's that called? The Blooming,
China Blossom?
China Blossom.
China Blossom, okay.
He said, Donny, why don't you give me 5 minutes on stage? I said, Johnny, I never did stand-up comedy. Are you kidding me? I'm scared shit, right? He says, you can do it. You can do it. Now I'm 74 years old, and I'm saying to myself, if I'm ever going to do it, let me do it now, right? So I says, you know what? Sign me up. I'm going to do it. So I go home and I write a whole bunch of shit, right? And the time comes, I'm petrified that night. And I got a guy in front of me. I won't say his name, but he was in front of me. And he's telling me how many years he's been doing comedy. And I said, wow, now I'm getting intimidated. And I'm saying, oh, shit, this kid's going to be fucking great. And I got to follow him, right? So he goes up there. And he didn't do what was anticipated for him to do with me watching. So he got pulled off stage in 5 minutes. And I'm saying, oh, God, thank God that, I'm following him. Now what happens? Fucking Johnny comes on stage and he's doing another whole segment, right? And now I'm getting more nervous by the second. Because he's a seasoned pro. I got to give it to him. He's been doing it forever.
I was warming him up for you.
Yeah, he was warming them up, right? Warming them up, giving me a nervous breakdown. So now he says, what are you going to do? Stand there forever? come on, are you going to come up here or what? And I don't. So now I go up on stage, and I said to him before we did it, I said, Johnny, whatever you do, don't pull me off stage until I'm done doing my routine. I'd never do that to you. You're my friend. So now I'm doing it. I don't know what signals are or anything. Next thing you know, I see a light shine, right? I was up there, I don't know, 7 minutes maybe. And I said, I see the light, Johnny. I see the light. And I just kept going. I did 15 minutes. He wanted to kill me because you went through the light. Nobody will ever hire you like that. Johnny, I didn't know if I was going to be one and done, you know? But you know what? I had a blast that night. And I didn't do poorly, I'll tell you the truth. And it wasn't for me. And so far, I used to have a little baby strokes before I would go on stage. And something happened one night and it chilled me on it and I stopped doing it. But acting is still my number one thing.
Well, being a comedian, actor, there's a lot of similarities.
Oh, absolutely.
And as an actor, as a seasoned actor, and what you are, you were able to tell some great stories up there.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, it's not totally out of your realm to do comedy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's tough for a comedian to become an actor.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's more natural for an actor to be a comedian because you had no stage fright. Once you got going, you looked like you were born on the stage because you're used to being on stage. You know
what you just said makes a lot of sense because as a comedian, I was an actor playing a comedian, and that's how I did it.
Exactly. So, and that's the key.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the key. So getting back to myself. So comedy was my way of being accepted as a kid, especially when like I said, I was tiny as a kid, little tiny little thing, and my father would always tell me, you'll grow. Don't. My mother was 5'8", my father was 6 feet, so there it was right there, and I'll never forget when I turned 16 and a half I couldn't see over the steering wheel, I couldn't reach the pedals. I'm like, Dad, what am I gonna do? Don't worry, you'll grow. And I had a growth spurt when I was like maybe 18 and a half, 19. And I got to 6 feet, which was, pretty wild. And sometimes I couldn't even, I look at myself and go, I can't even believe I'm 6 feet. Really, it was just amazing. And then my two boys, they were great both my boys, especially my son Justin. They were great athletes, great athletes, but they were small, and they didn't develop, just kind of like me, same thing, until after. That's why out, in Texas and all those places, they keep their kids back on purpose.
Yeah. When
they have a little talent in football and baseball, sometimes they keep them back 2 years. I believe that. Yeah. Oh, they do. That's a common practice, like in down like in the Midwest, Texas and Arkansas. Stuff like you'll see these kids, they graduate from high school, they're 20, 21 years old.
Now I'm going to stop him right now because I don't want him to waste the 3 hours that we're going to do tonight. No, I was kidding. But I want him to tell you about, most of us grew up with the Beatles. Okay. And Johnny is a foremost authority on the Beatles. And I'm not just bullshitting you, though I can bullshit with the best of them. I want you to tell them about going to England, the whole bit. You can even tell them about the T-shirt I gave you to wear with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was, being a Beatle fan all my life. Big part of all our lives. Yeah. When they come on Ed Sullivan, February 9th, 1964, it changed the world. It changed. Do you realize, Don, the 2 days after they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, everybody was wearing boys were wearing Beatle boots.
Yeah.
2 days later, I couldn't wear them because my ankles were too skinny. They would just fall right off me, But I made my mother buy me a collarless jacket.
I had that jacket, and I had the Beatle boots when I was in Germany.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez. Well, that's where they became really the musicians they became. Was playing in Germany for those 2 years, 12 hours a day. And that's how they became good musicians. Even when they first started, when they got into the studio with George Martin in many interviews said when he first saw them in 1963, he said they weren't that good. Yeah. They weren't that good at all. But, George Martin was an accomplished artist and stuff. And he really taught them a lot. Yeah. And they matured as musicians, and they became great musicians. So, so it all, it was like a puzzle. Everything just fit in perfect. Yeah. You know what I mean? With the Beatles. But going over to England, what a dream that was. Going to London.
Didn't you go where they hung out? Liverpool?
Oh, yeah. And first I went into London. The reason why I went to London was to see a baseball game. And it was the Yankees playing the Red Sox. So I said, what a great opportunity. I could go and see the Red Sox play the Yankees. And then I took the train to Liverpool. Oh, my God, Don.
Yeah.
Going to each one of their houses. And the tour guide saying to me, see that room right there? They wrote about 40 songs in that room.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then going to John Lennon's house. And if you know anything about the Beatles, John was brought up by his Aunt Mimi, his mother's sister. And John's mother, when he was 16, was visiting him. She lived a mile away, and she had 2 daughters with another guy. And she was visiting, and she was crossing the street to catch a bus to get back home. And she was hit by an off-duty drunk policeman.
Oh.
And she went about 15 feet in the air. They said she was dead before she hit the ground. And John had a chip in his shoulder his whole life. John was the type of guy, nobody was allowed to play with John. Every parent said, don't you dare go to that Lennon boy. He's nothing but trouble. That's how he was. John was the type of kid that he'd look at you and punch in the face. Yeah. He just had that because he was angry. All the men around him in his life somehow died.
Really?
Yeah,
Would you guys agree with me that a funny clown could be considered a comedian? Seriously?
No,
it's a whole different. It's a whole different shtick.
So somebody wrote, my favorite is Let It Be by the Beatles. The Beatles songs, there were four ordinary guys that wrote songs that ordinary people can relate to.
Exactly.
And what made them great, and I'm telling you all out there in YouTube land, and I think everybody has pretty much an idea, the competitiveness between John and Paul is what made them great. Because when John wrote a song, Paul thought he should do something outdo each other. Yeah. When John wrote Strawberry Fields, Paul wrote Penny Lane. When John wrote In My Life, which is a great song. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some for better, not forever. Some have gone, and some remain.
That was for free.
That was good. And I know something, we sounded pretty good. We kind of harmonized pretty good just there. But now that's a great song by John Lennon, phenomenal lyrics that you could just relate to. And Paul writes Here, There, and Everywhere. Another great song. As a matter of fact, that's one of, if you were able to ask John in his heyday, when he was live, he would have said his favorite song was Here, There, and Everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this competitiveness between them both was what made them so great, And there's so much. I could do a 5-hour session.
I know that you hung around the corner where they hung around the
Penny Lane.
Was it Penny Lane where they hung around?
Yeah. Well, Penny Lane was an area.
It was a doorway or something.
Well, is where they met. Yeah. They met at this church in St. John's Wood, they called it the FETE, the Fate. And John was playing with this group called the Quarrymen. And somebody invited Paul, their mutual friend Ivan, and then Paul just went, and they were looking for girls. They were trying to pick up girls. So John went, met Paul, wasn't crazy about him because even at 16 years old, John was drunk. Okay, and that was Paul's first impression of John, and but John played 20 Flight Rock by Eddie Cochran, I believe it is.
Eddie Cochran.
Yeah. And impressed everybody. And so John asked him to be a part. And then George came along a little while later. The birth of the Beatles. It's just to me, it's an amazing thing because 4 guys in the same neighborhood, Liverpool, that made such an impression on the world. Yeah,
working class families.
Exactly.
And Stu Sutcliffe, what was he?
Stu Sutcliffe was an art student, and he was
He's the one that John kicked him in the head.
Well, that was an author wrote that in one of the books, in the John Lennon book. There was another time too, by the way, when they used to play. Now, Stu Sutcliffe was a very talented artist, and John wanted him in the Beatles, and they made him buy a bass guitar with a painting that he sold for about $1,500, and they made him buy a bass, and he really wasn't he'd actually turn his back and play the bass when they would play. But a lot of times when they did these little church halls, the Teddy boys in the area would go there, and they were looking for trouble.
Street thugs.
And then after the show, they would be fighting. And one time Stu got beat up really bad. They kicked him, and that could have been, one of the reasons why he died of a brain hemorrhage about 2 years later in Hamburg, Germany. He fell in love with Astrid Kirchner, who was the photographer who took a lot of the early pictures of the Beatles when they were in Germany. But it's just great. I mean, again, to me, it's just an amazing thing that these 4 lads from Liverpool made such an amazing thing in the world. I mean, everybody in the world knows who they are.
Johnny, I got to say this one thing.
Ahead.
I might have to take that back if I see it signed by John Lennon or something.
Oh yeah, okay.
Should show him. Grab that picture. Let me show him this picture.
Okay.
Wait till you see this picture I have. Can you guys see this? Because I can't see you anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they can see it.
All right.
Yeah, it's a beauty.
So I gave this to my buddy, Johnny Pizzi, because I know he adored the Beatles. You have to get a better frame for that.
Yeah.
Nice, huh?
That's a beautiful piece of artwork.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you something, Don. I made a promise to myself that I am going to go back to England. I found England, London, just absolutely beautiful. The architecture, when you see buildings and you look at this building, it's absolutely stunning. And then you see built in 1593, and you go, how did they build these things in that time? It's amazing how.
Let me know when you go if you're going alone.
Yeah.
Because I want to see Brian Cuss. If you're there, Brian, I want to see you, brother. I'm going to go see you. He served under the Queen, Brian Cuss. He's not there.
Yeah.
But he was there earlier, I think. Sorry, I'm late. Oh,
Tracy.
She's from England, too.
Is she really? Hello, love. Hello, love.
Tracy, have you been listening to any of his stories about the Beatles?
Brian Cuss said, I'll be here.
Yeah, I'll be here. Okay. Maybe I'll come out there when Johnny goes out there.
Now,
again.
who's Jim Morrison's bathtub?
Huh?
It says Jim Morrison's bathtub. Hey, Johnny, great to see you. Who is it?
Oh,
I love, by the way, I was a big Doors fan. I love.
Yeah.
He died on my birthday, July 3rd, 1971.
Actually, he was more a poet
Oh, yeah.
than a songwriter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they turned a lot of his songs,
Into
a lot of his poems
poems
into songs. Riders on the Storm,
Yeah.
That was a poem.
Yeah.
He did not write "Light My Fire" though.
No,
He didn't write that.
I know who wrote it.
Robbie Kruger.
Oh, you had to tell on me.
Sorry.
I didn't know who it was. I was going to make up a stupid name, but so yeah, this is why I enjoy what I do, Johnny. I get the best people, the friends of Donny T and friends.
Right.
These guys, believe me, I love them, and the best part is they all know I do. I don't bullshit
Right.
anybody.
Oh, I know. I know you're not that type of guy.
No.
But growing up, like when we talked earlier about growing up in East Boston, I just I was just one of those guys. I wanted people to like me.
Yeah.
And so you play sports, you try to do well, you make friends. I moved from Jeffrey's Point, then I moved to the projects. Yeah. And I got to tell you something, Don. That was like the low point of my life. I thought, oh my God, this is it. Moving to the projects, and I used to get on my bike. I used to go from the Maverick Projects. I used to ride my bike down to Jeffrey's Point. But little by little, it's amazing how you get stigmatized. And I could tell, oh, he's from the projects. Yeah, he's from the projects.
That was the best thing that ever happened to me. I used to get chased, beat up every day, held on the railroad tracks. I couldn't get away. First grade.
Wow.
This guy was my biggest enemy at the time. So now we moved from Bates Street to the projects. And I'll say, oh, thank God I'm away from that kid. He moved to the same projects. That son of a bitch.
He couldn't get away.
Oh, yeah. Pete Best.
Oh, Pete. Yeah, it was Pete Best. Where does it say Pete Best?
No, that's me telling you about Pete Best.
Oh, Pete Best. that poor guy.
Yeah.
They call him the unluckiest man in show business. One day, I think it was August, might have been August, either August 9th or the 18th. Brian Epstein called him in the office and said, Pete thought they were going to go over some dates.
Yeah.
And he said, Brian, I got some bad news for you. The boys want you out. And I mean, can you imagine? It was shortly after that, Ringo took over. But what I found interesting, Don?
What?
5 guys before Ringo turned the job down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Can you imagine that?
And that's one case where being good looking hurts you.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Pete Best
was good looking, so there was a lot of jealousy.
Yeah. I really don't think that was the reason. From all I've read, he was, he was an okay drummer. Ringo was in the best. They called him Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, and they were like one of the top groups in London and Liverpool at that time, and so what happened was when they went to record their first recording session with George Martin said to Brian Epstein, he goes, look at Pete's having a little tough time keeping that steady beat I need.
Really?
He goes, I'm gonna use my sessions drummer to record "Love Me Do," their first recording. Now, George Martin said, when you go in concert, you play. Doesn't matter. He'd be fine. But when we record, I need a guy that could keep that beat for the whole time. And Brian Epstein took it as he don't like Pete Best. And I think the boys are like, get rid of him, get rid of him. So that really wasn't the case. That was a common practice. Yeah. But here's the thing, Ringo comes on, they go into the recording studio to do "Love Me Do." There's 3 versions. There's a Pete Best version, there's a session drummer version, and there's a Ringo Starr version. They get into the studio, and what happens? George Martin says to Ringo, sit over there. I got a sessions drummer. Ringo never forgave him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But that was common practice in those days to get a sessions drummer. You needed a professional that could keep that beat the whole song. Yeah. And Ringo never forgave him. I love
that song.
Yeah. That was, this new song that they just put out after 40 years called Now and Then.
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
Yeah.
And I love what they did with it, Don.
I think I did it. I heard it on Sean's show.
Did you?
Son's show.
Did you really? Did he play it? Oh, but what a great marketing they put on the single. they put "Love Me Do" on one side, their first song,
Oh,
and "Now and Then," their
last
last
song.
song.
Oh, that's a great
I
idea.
go, how cool is that?
Let's see. Every once in a while,
Ron Lynch. I don't wonder if that's the Ron Lynch I knew as a comedian. Great history of the Beatles. Thank you.
Oh yeah,
And if anybody has any questions,
please ask questions.
Yeah.
My pal is here,
if you have any
and I
questions,
can't get him all the time because he. Please believe me, you don't know how much I had to pay this guy to come here. Yeah, I bet you there was no way in God's holy name they could have anticipated the success that they would have.
No, I don't think, something, Don, and I've thought about that many, many times.
Yeah.
You could never, ever even think of and envision on how your life will change, not being able to go out. You can't go to the store. So you become a prisoner of your fame.
Give me a shot at it. Just for like
10 minutes.
No, the next 20 years of my life.
Paul used to like to go out in disguise once in a while. Sometimes ride the bus and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can imagine it could be a little.
Well, that's why John moved to. Actually, that's why John loved New York and he loved America, because in New York he could walk the streets, and all people would say was, "Hey, John." They just go, "Hey, John."
Yeah, exactly.
But in England, that people would 24/7 in front of the Abbey Road Studios.
Yeah.
Outside the gates of his house. So, it's like, I can't even go out, but in New York City, he could walk the streets.
Yeah.
And he loved that. He loved being able to go, because he lived right across the street from Central Park.
Yeah.
He loved to go across the street and just walk with Yoko or walk with the baby.
Oh, I had no idea there were any recordings of Pete Best playing. I was always curious to hear how he played.
Well, if you go on, Jim Morrison's Bathtub, if you get the anthology set DVD, or you could go on YouTube and you probably be able to pull it up on YouTube. Yes, there are when the Beatles did the Decca auditions, I believe Pete was on the Decca auditions, and again, just an average drummer. Curiously, when they were in Germany, Pete had the big bass drum. Well, he made it boom, 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 and it was this driving beat. And actually, they became noted because of that driving beat that he would give in that bass drum. And he was a handsome guy, but he was also kind of a loner. And see, here's a quote from John Lennon. So John Lennon one time was asked about Pete Best and Ringo Starr, and John's response was, Pete could have been a better drummer, but Ringo was a better Beatle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Because Ringo had such a great sense of humor.
Yeah,
he was funny, quick-witted, and so that's what. And here's another thing too, Don. So the three Beatles, they adopt the hairstyle. Now that was a German thing in Germany. All the young college kids were wearing their hair down in that, I believe it's called a page boy thing, wearing their hair down. And when Klaus Vormann came to see him with Asterisk, he what do you call wow, that's a lot of stuff there. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on tonight, buddy.
So anyway, so John, Paul, and George, Paul, and John, Paul, and George started putting their hair down and cutting their hair. Pete Best wouldn't do it. And you can't have three guys doing it and one guy not. He didn't conform.
Oh, really?
He didn't conform. So that could have been oh, look at this. This guy's in Arizona. Great show, Donny. Got to run. Cold out here. It's cold in Arizona.
Yeah,
wow.
And I'm going to Vegas very soon.
Wow. Who was the oldest Beatle? That was Ringo Starr. Ringo was the oldest Beatle. He was born on July 7th, 1940.
He gets invited to all their birthdays,
Yeah. And John was October 9th.
Did you meet Pete Best?
I did. I did a funny story, and I donated, and it was only on loan. I had a lot of Beatle paraphernalia. Some of it was probably worth some bucks. And but I let them put it on display at the Hard Rock Cafe in Boston when it was over near Copley Square in Clarendon Street. And so they knew I was a big, I had done some things with the Hard Rock Cafe. So I became very friendly with Elaine. Her name was Elaine Wood. She was the GM. She really, really, really liked me a lot. She called me up. She goes, Johnny, we know how much of a Beatle fan you are. Would you like to meet Pete Best? I went, yeah. And this was before the Anthology album would come out. Now you got to remember, before Anthology, Pete Best was still a city worker in London. Didn't make a lot of money. He was a baker at one time, making donuts or bread or whatever he did in the bakery. So he tried to commit suicide 2 times.
Really?
Yeah. It was tough being in what he lost.
Yeah.
So so anyway, so I said, oh, I'd love to meet him. So sure enough, I go over to where he was going to be appearing. And so it was me. I brought my cousin Bobby, and there was these 2 young girls in their early 20s. And they said to us, don't mention the Beatles. And you go, what? Don't mention the Beatles. Does not want to talk about the Beatles.
Oh, what else are you going to talk about?
Okay, So sure enough, we go in the room. How you doing, Mr. Best? It's great to meet you. Blah, blah, blah. And I invited them to Giggles to come to see the comedy show. Blah, blah, blah. Just small talking. And I knew enough not to mention the Beatles. And I took a nice picture with them and stuff like that. So anyways, one of the girls says to him, hey, Pete, now when you were with the Beatles, right? And he went, I don't want to talk about the Beatles with his heavy Liverpudlian accent. And she was taken back. She goes, yeah, but when you were with the Beatles, I don't want to talk about the Beatles. And she turned all red. And so put it this way, the meeting ended abruptly after that, right? But I get to meet him, which was nice. Now, when the Anthology, there was somebody that mentioned, I had no idea there were recordings. On Anthology, there's a bunch of recordings of Pete Best recording with the Beatles. And he made anywhere between $7 and $10 million when Anthology came out. So Pete Best is now living a much better life than he was prior to Anthology, when he was just a city worker working in a bakery.
So it
raising
did pay
his
off
children.
after.
Yeah, it paid off a little bit. I mean, when you consider
$7 million, that ain't a little bit.
Yeah. Well, when you consider the fact that Paul McCartney's a billionaire, his estate's 800 million.
Yeah.
Ringo's 450 million, and the late George Harrison, probably about 350 to 400 million dollars. So they made some good money.
Oh yeah. To my friends out there, let me just ask you. Pretty cool listening to Johnny Pizzi's adoration of the Beatles. He knows his stuff. I get drawn in too. He might be talking to you, but I'm hearing every word. I love the Beatles. I remember the White Album when that came up. I was going to college at the time.
Wow.
For a couple of months. And
double album. It was a double album.
Yeah.
And some interesting facts about it. So they wrote all those songs in the White Album while they were in India. They were with the Maharishi. Yeah. And they were studying under the Maharishi. And so they were supposed to be staying with them for 3 months. I think they cut it short, a little bit short to a couple of months. But they wrote a lot of the song, like Dear Prudence. Remember the song, Dear Prudence, won't you? Now, you know what that song's about?
No.
Okay, Mia Farrow was there with her sister Prudence. Oh. And so Prudence, for some reason, liked to stay in her room there at the Maharishi's place. And so John was like, come on, come on, join us. So he wrote, Dear Prudence, won't you come out to play? And so a lot of those songs. But interesting enough, now that White Album, when it came out, was totally blank. Yeah. It was just white, which was unheard of, because normally when you put an album out, you put the Beatles, the Monkees, the Stones, completely white. It's imprinted on the album, the Beatles, but it's hardly noticeable because it's all white. And but but still had sold. And when the Beatles album come out, didn't John buy his auntie a house? Yes, he did.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't see that.
So John actually, out of the three Beatles, was not poor growing up.
Yeah.
His auntie was middle class. They called them middle class. The other three were like lived in they called it almost like the projects.
Yeah.
In Liverpool. And Paul's mother, who was a nurse, she used to help deliver the babies. There's a word for it, something nurse. And she got cancer, and she passed away. And they didn't tell Paul and his brother Mike for 8 months. They didn't. They kept on saying she's away. So they didn't even know about the mother for 8 months. I just sent away for a book that written by. It's all photographs by Paul's brother Michael, Mike McCartney, and it's signed by him, and it's there's only so many copies of it. Beautiful case that come in, and but it's all early pictures of the Beatles and Paul when they were growing up. And those are I love those things because it just, they were just four guys that could have been like, anybody in the neighborhood,
Let me interrupt for 1 second.
Sure, no, please.
Okay, guys, here's the thing. All right. Because we got a late start this evening because of my technology wizardry, which is, anyway, I'd like to go longer. If you guys say go longer, Donny, I will. I will stay here he's got more stories than Disney.
I can't even believe the time. I can't even go to how the time flies.
It's almost an hour.
It's unbelievable.
There was a little time
we had so much, all the stuff I wrote down here, right? Once we get going and we start talking and, stuff like that, it just goes by so fast. Yeah. Go longer, Donny.
That's it. It's done. When one person says it, we're good to go. Okay. There's two things. I wanted to talk a little about Jerry Lewis because it's plenty about Jerry. Yeah. But prior to that, we're going to do a little street stuff. Okay. Johnny Pizzi, if you'd be kind enough to tell us about the time you hitchhiked.
Okay.
And who you met along the way.
All right. Well, there's two great stories. You talk about
the other one about the knife.
Yeah. I was a hostage. I was held hostage. You like the hitchhiker one better than the hostage?
I like both of them, but the hitchhiker first.
All right. So and this will tell you anybody hitchhiking, don't do it.
Yeah.
So because I used to do it, even
we all did it.
Yeah, we all did it, right? And so okay, I would my daughter was probably about 2-3 months old, living in Malden, in like this apartment building, and so the guys in the post office, I was working in the post office at the time. They were going away for the overnight over the weekend. So there was about 5 of us, 5 guys. And so we go away for the weekend down to Falmouth, Seacrest, as a matter of fact. And so from Saturday, we slept over Sunday, and I woke up and I was homesick Sunday morning, and everybody's sleeping. And I got my backpack and I got my jacket and I went downstairs. Nobody could hear me. It was like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I go out and I hitchhike and I get a ride right away. Boom. To the bridge. I think it was the Sagamore. So I'm at there and I hitchhike, and sure enough, I get another quick pickup. I'm like, wow, this is great. So now we go over the bridge. We're on Route 3. Driving through Plymouth, and just little conversation. This guy picks me up, conversation. And so all of a sudden, I don't like from between his legs, he pulled out a knife. It was this long. And he puts it to my throat like this. Now he's the driver. So he puts it in the point is sticking right there. And he goes, I can kill you right now and nobody would even know.
Holy shit.
And I look at this knife And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be killed here. This is it for me. Swear to God, right? So he puts the knife back, and he must have had a case or something like in between. And all I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So as we're driving, it's a bright, sunny day. Now, this is why I swear to God, sometimes God has been so wonderful to me and saved my life 3 or 4 different times. I could tell you that I should have been dead. So we get off at Route 3, and then we get off, and we're on, like, I think it's called 93. And then we're going to make that in Quincy, you make that little turn to go.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Listen to this. Out of nowhere, it starts downpouring. I mean, like you can't even see in front of you. So just as we're making that little turn in Quincy, like to go into Route 3 towards Boston, it's now 93. But anyway, the traffic backed up to a stop right there at that turn because you couldn't even see. I had my hand on the handle. I open the door. I jump out. He grabs my bag. I grab my bag and I just tug it away from him. And I stop. I'm on the highway and I'm running. and I just kept on. And I'm crying. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get. So I had no money on me. I got to the train station. I climbed a barbed wire fence. I don't know how I did it, but I climbed the barbed wire fence, got over, and I took the train. And when I got to a Riviera, wherever it was, I had my wife pick me up, and I never mentioned it for over 20 years. I just couldn't talk about it.
No, I don't blame you.
You know, it was something. I have this ability to blank certain things out of my mind, and I think a lot of it stems from my childhood. Sometimes growing up, there were some tough situations in my life. I'm able to blank them out.
I think that's what makes a good comedian a great comedian. When the trials and tribulations of life teach you a lot, survival techniques and
Survival,
shit.
yeah.
So with that being said, I know another time that God came down and blessed Johnny Pizzi. Tell them that story.
Okay. Well, let
me just say one thing. The first time I interviewed Johnny, he told me these stories, but it's been so long, and I was so new at this game that I'm doing now that even if he's repeating them, it's like brand new because most people will not have seen it.
Well, one quick story before we get to that one there. I was about 5 or 6, and this guy was living in the West End at the time. He took me and his son to the Charles River, and we're walking along the Charles River, and we got some popcorn, and there were rocks, and you could walk down the rocks to feed the ducks, right? So I didn't realize at 5 years old that when the rocks got darker, that means they were wet.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm throwing the popcorn to the ducks, and I slip and I fall in the Charles River. and I could as plain as I can remember this, like floating down, and I could see like through the water, and I'm floating down, and the guy that I was there with his son, his name was Frank LeBecki. Frank grabs my hand and he doesn't let go. He comes in. He can't swim. So now the both of us are sinking down. Somebody jumped in and saved us both.
Really?
Yeah. And I think they had to, like, because I had water.
Yeah.
Because I must have swallowed all this one. And I can still remember walking home wet, but alive.
I thought you were going to say the ducks saved you.
So that's another story. Now, God knows who this guy is that saved us. Today he'd be honored at City Hall. I think the guy saved us, and he went his way, we went our way. And I don't think Frank wanted to tell my mother and my father, hey, by the way, your son nearly drowned, and he's lucky to be alive.
I have a similar story, but I'm not going to tell mine. I want you to tell yours.
All right. So anyway, here I am, 17 years old, and hanging out with the guys, and it was a Saturday night, and So I was with my friend Vijo, and so somebody said, "Hey, there's going to be a beef." That's the word. There's going to be a beef at Maverick Square. The sailors are hitting on. The sailors would come in on the ships, and they would come into the bars, and then they'd have drinks, and then they'd hit on the girls, and then the boyfriends would get mad, and that's what it was probably all about. So of course, being the tough guys, which I was never a tough guy, but you had to act it. Right. So anyways, there's going to be a beef at Maverick Square. Let's go down there. So me and Vijo was standing across the street.
Was that your tough guy imitation?
Yeah, my tough guy imitation. Right. So now all of a sudden I could see the guys from Maverick and the sailors, and they're like yelling it back and forth to each other because I'm across the street now, right? And they're arguing back and forth. Now, of course, I'm not the brightest bulb in the tree. This guy with this long coat comes up to me, and he, with an southern accent, he goes, "Y'all know what's going on here?" Like, now, of course, I should have realized he's not from this area, right? But of course, right? I go, with my tough guy, "Hey, I don't know what's going on here. There's a beef," right? Yeah. All of a sudden, the fight breaks out, and they're swinging bats and everything's bang, bang, bang. So now the sailors are starting to get their butts kicked. Oh, I could say their asses kicked. The minute the sailors started getting their asses kicked, all of a sudden I felt an arm go around my neck and a knife go to my throat. And he goes, "Nobody move." And everything stopped. And I'm like, and he's holding me hostage, and he's kind of backing up. We're backing up. And he's telling his boys to run, to get away. And it was just an instinctive thing that I did. I put my hand like this, and I just got my hand around the knife like this. It's amazing, right? All of a sudden, this guy, and his name is Laurie DeRocco. He was from Everett Street in East Boston. He come after the guy with a hammer hatchet, and I could feel the guy trying to slice my throat. I could feel him trying to do it. And then he knew he had to run out, and he pulls the knife out, and he runs, and my hand's cut, and blood is just streaming down my arm. And Vijo takes me over there was a cop car parked. The cops didn't get out, and I don't blame them. They didn't get out of the car, and my friend goes, "You got to take him to the hospital. His hands are cut down, and the cop says, "How old are you?" I said, 17. He goes, "Yeah, you got to get your parents." And of course, there was no way I was going to my parents. No. We go to my friend Vijo's. We soak my hand in peroxide or something, and we taped my hand. Taped. Okay, God's honest truth. I definitely needed stitches, and it healed after it healed. Thank God I didn't get infections or nothing. Yeah. But believe me, they were cut. Vijo was here; he would tell you the same thing. So that was another life-saving thing. Then another time, I'm in East Boston on 6 stories up, and we're putting signs up for this guy, my friend of ours. His brother's running for mayor. Jimmy Kearney, brother Dennis Kearney's running for mayor. I'm holding this big sign. It's a huge sign, and it was like a sail on a boat. A sailboat. Now I got the sign, and the wind comes, and then I'm doing this like Donny, and I can't see because I got the sign. All of a sudden, I'm doing this, and I look. I'm at the edge of the building, the edge of the building, 1/2 inch more, and I go for 6 flights down, and it was like, what made it stop right there? Boom.
I know.
So, lucky, thank God.
So let me ask you a question, Johnny Pizzi.
Sure.
What do you think of my crew? This, in mob talk, everybody had a crew. Mm-hmm. This is our crew. Pretty good crew.
I think that's really, really nice that these people, these friends of yours come on and they support what you're doing. And
they get involved.
And they get involved and they ask questions. It's great. And I got to tell you something, and I said this at the beginning, but we had no volume.
Yeah.
So Lenny was the first guest that Don had on. I was a second guest, and I forget who the third one was, but it was really raw at the beginning.
Your friend.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, Mr. Willis.
Yeah.
Hi, Richie. Like he's gonna watch this.
Yeah.
But anyway, So it was raw, and I used to try to give you some tips and stuff like this. Not that I'm any expert at any of this stuff.
He gave me some. I'm going to tell you some of the valuable tips he gave me.
And now, but I got to tell you something. Now I've watched like your past 5 or 6. I mean, I tell you, starting with Frank Cinderelli was a phenomenal guest in your show. I got to tell you that he was fantastic. And
He's a great guy too. I love him.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So you're the one?
I'm the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I'd rather say good things.
And Matt Mishi did a great job, and kudos to go out to Matt Mishi because from where he was and where he is and what he's doing,
It's come a long way.
It's come a long way. You know what I mean? So
and he's my last show. That'll be on the 18th, and all these guys will definitely tune in.
Yeah. So anyways, and then I guess your last one with Jody Sloan was fantastic, and I know
they love Jody.
Yeah. Oh
they
God.
Jody,
I mean, how could you not? She's a sweetheart.
She is.
And
very entertaining.
Yeah, very entertaining. A great comedian. She does such a great job, and she's lovable on stage. Not even like her. She's lovable on stage. Really so.
We've become friends.
Yeah, she's a great kid.
Because when the night that she was supposed to come on, and she told me she had COVID, or she thought she had COVID or whatever, she was sick as a dog.
Yeah.
And I heard her voice. I didn't believe her because prior to her, there was that other guy that said he was supposed to be a boxing promoter, and he called me the day of the show to tell me that he had COVID. And listen, Johnny, I've been around. I mean, I don't believe everything I hear.
Right.
And I didn't trust the guy, and I didn't believe him. But that night I went on, and it was a tough night. I did it alone because I'll never let these guys down.
Right.
I'm going to do the show alone or with the guy that's supposed to be on it.
Right.
But I told a story about my sister dying and a whole bit. And I was, I lost it.
Yeah.
And I don't like doing things like that.
People are talking about hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And I just saw something saying that somebody, we used to stand at the beginning of the East Boston, and I did that many times.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, some people do. They would pick you up and take you right through the tunnel.
Yeah.
And I did that because when I used to work for the post office.
I did it in Germany. I used to do it all the time.
Wow.
Okay, Stohin.
Yeah. Well, you got a little German. You could speak a little German. That's fantastic. You picked it up pretty good. I'm still having a tough time with the English.
It throws you a little curveball here and there.
Yeah.
English. Yeah.
But something. So when I was saying before, growing up and moving to the projects, which I thought was going to be the worst time of my life, I met the most incredible people who are still my friends today, who I treasure. You are, but it's okay.
That's okay. I have to sometimes because these people are.
They're asking quick. Yeah.
Who's going to be the real man in the next score?
What's that mean?
Yeah, what's that mean?
Sunshine, what does that mean?
Sorry, I'm supposed to be working, but I'm tuned in, but I can't really participate. Okay, but you keep that thought, because when you say score, the Revere in me perks up, and I want to know about scores, because that's how I used to make a living. Nothing huge, but enough, So here's what I'm going to do, guys, okay? Our next show is tomorrow night with Eddie Portala, who happens to love you guys, and he was dying to get another show going. And because I interrupted Johnny P, I want you to continue what you were going to say, and then we're going to close out for the evening, okay? Go ahead.
That sounds good. I was just saying how I thought that moving to the projects was going to be the worst thing in my life. And then end up meeting people that are still in my life today who are still great friends.
Yeah.
Jimmy Syracuser, Stevie Chance, Eddie Catino, Paggy. Just so many of the guys. And they looked out for me. Eddie Cantilli, Ray Poirier, who I still to this day idolize. And so it's just that these guys mean so much to me and protected me. when I got to be a teenager and hang with these guys, if anybody bothered me, and one time I did get jumped by these wise asses. Oh my God! When I went down the pool room, Leo's pool room, and I told the guys who these guys jumped me, and I wasn't bothering anybody, just walking by myself. And of course, sometimes if they say you're walking by yourself, they were like junkies. And oh my God, 6 guys left the pool room, tracked those guys down, and they gave them the beating of all beatings. And but they deserved it.
Justified. You know? I hate punks and bullies.
You know,
those are the 2 segments of society that I hate.
Yeah.
Hate. Punks and bullies. Be nice to people. That's how I look.
That's it. You know, I got to tell you something now. We're going to be closing up the podcast. I cannot even believe I didn't touch upon hardly any of my notes here, because we do get off and we do start talking about certain things, and it's always fun. And I will tell you this: keep on tuning in. Donnie's made this a terrific podcast, and you know, he's going to be going to Vegas for 6 months, but he's not going to stop. No. He's going to keep on doing what he does, and I'm going to be going out to Vegas. Who knows? He might still be out there when I come out, but I won't be going out till the end of July. I'll be working.
You never know. My son's a con artist.
Yeah. Too. He might keep you in a little while more. But if you're out there, we can hang out together.
Yeah. And Johnny is going to be watching my house.
I am.
And he's a badass too.
That's right.
Anybody who wants to fuck with my house.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, but so like I said, this has just been great. And I thank you guys for tuning in and getting involved and asking questions. And who knows, maybe when he comes back, or maybe sometime I could do the podcast again.
Yeah.
And maybe I could talk about some of the things I wrote here, which when we go off track, but it's all right. It's a great off track.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a great off track.
Our off track is more on track.
Exactly. You know? Exactly.
So guys, I love you. And you know, from my heart, I mean that. And I'm sure Johnny has a little something to say before we retire. Tell them how wonderful they are. Come on. They love that.
I just said that.
Okay.
I just said it one more time. I'll say it one more time. Thank you all for participating.
You know what? Now he's going to forget how I really said.
No, I can't even.
Thank you for your participation.
Thank you all.
Guys,
God bless.
I love you.
And listen, happy holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
And a happy New Year.
And don't forget, we're here tomorrow night with Big Ed. God bless. Love you.